What would you do if your family turned your life into a ballot box, voting to drain your savings while your spouse just watched? The dining room was a battlefield, the air heavy with the scent of roast chicken and betrayal. I stood at the head of the table, my hands trembling as I gripped a stack of papers, my weapons in a war I never wanted to fight. The Morgan family stared back at me, their faces a gallery of smugness, guilt, and shock. They just held their family vote, a grotesque ritual to strong-arm me into bailing out my brother-in-law, Lucas, with $25,000 I'd worked years to save. My husband, Nathan, sat beside me, his silence louder than any shout. I forced a smile, cold and sharp, and said, "All right, let's vote on something else." I dropped the papers onto the table. The room exploded, and in that chaos, I saw the end of everything I'd once held dear. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 35, a trauma nurse from a sleepy Vermont town where the winters are long and the secrets longer. I'd been married to Nathan for 10 years, a decade I thought was built on love, trust, and partnership. I'd left behind a bustling life in Portland to join his world, the Morgans, a clan steeped in tradition, Sunday dinners, and unspoken rules. I was an outsider from the start, my city accent and no-nonsense demeanor clashing with their rural rhythms. But I tried. I loved Nathan, and I believed love could bridge any gap. I was wrong. Option 1, forgive and rebuild. Option 2, expose and destroy. Comment your choice, 1 or 2. If you love stories of resilience, reclaiming justice with style, and rediscovering your worth, hit that subscribe button for Graceful Revenge now. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let's dive into the power of elegant revenge and life's deepest lessons together. I can still see Nathan leaning against that bar counter in Portland, his shy grin cutting through the Friday night clamor. I was 24, fresh out of nursing school, celebrating with friends. He was in town for a wedding, a small-town guy with kind eyes and a quiet charm that disarmed me. "You look like you could use a dance," he'd said, and I laughed, letting him pull me onto the floor. We moved like we'd known each other forever, his hands steady on my waist, my head spinning from more than the cheap beer. By the end of the night, he'd scribbled his number on a napkin. "Call me," he said. "I'm worth it." I did. 6 months later, I moved to Vermont, drunk on the promise of a life with him. That napkin's still in a box somewhere, a relic of a love I thought would last. Fast forward to last fall. Lucas, Nathan's younger brother, was a 30-year-old tornado of failed dreams, crypto scams that crashed, a luxury RV rental business that never left the driveway, a brief obsession with artisanal kombucha that left his garage reeking of fermented failure. The Morgans coddled him, their golden child who could do no wrong. "He's just ambitious," his mother Diane would coo, her voice thick with denial as she ignored the trail of debt he left behind. This time, he'd taken out a $60,000 loan, roping his parents into co-signing with promises of a tech startup that sounded too good to be true. It was. When it collapsed, because it always did, the bank circled like vultures, threatening their home. Lucas showed up at our house one rainy October evening, his jacket soaked, his grin too wide. "Em, I need a favor," he said, pacing our living room like a caged animal. 25 grand, short term. I've got a deal, rare vinyl records. Collectors are begging for this stuff." His eyes sparkled with that rehearsed sincerity I'd learned to distrust over years of watching him flail. "No," I said, folding my arms. "We're saving for a new furnace, Lucas, and your track record's a mess." I kept it civil, even felt a pang of guilt as his face fell. He nodded, muttered, "Fair enough," and left. I thought I'd dodged a bullet. I hadn't. I still hear Diane's clipped, "Welcome, dear," the first time I stepped into their home, Nathan's hand squeezing mine as he whispered, "They'll warm up to you." It was a Sunday dinner 6 months after I'd moved to Vermont, the table groaning under platters of food, the air thick with judgment. Richard grunted a hello, Rachel offered a tight smile, and Lucas sized me up like I was a mark. I brought a pie, smiled through their backhanded compliments. City girls don't usually cook, do they? And clung to Nathan's promise. They never warmed up, and over time, he stopped trying. That night, I thought it was just a rough start. Now, I see it was a warning. 3 days after Lucas's visit, Diane texted, "Family meeting, 7 p.m. Our place, important. No details, just an order." I should have smelled the trap, but I went, Nathan trailing behind me like a shadow. The Morgan house was packed. Diane and Richard, the parents, Lucas's sister, Rachel, his brother Matt, even distant cousins I'd met once at a barbecue. Lucas was delayed. They greeted me with smiles that didn't reach their eyes, and my stomach churned. Richard stood, his voice rough from decades of whiskey and regret. "Emily, we've talked. Lucas is in deep, and it's a family problem. You've got the cash. We know you do. So we're voting on it." I laughed. A short, incredulous bark. "Voting?" Diane nodded, prim and resolute. "Majority rules. It's the fairest way." I turned to Nathan, waiting for him to shut it down, to stand up for me like he'd promised all those years ago. He didn't. He stared at his hands, his jaw tight, his silence a knife in my chest. One by one, they raised their hands. Yes, Emily and Nathan should give Lucas the money. 9-0. They looked at me, expectant, like I'd just cave because they'd played their twisted game. My mind raced, a storm of anger and disbelief. Forgive them? Let it slide for the sake of peace? Or call their bluff and watch it burn? I took a slow breath and said, "Fine, let's vote again." I pulled a manila envelope from my bag and slid it toward Nathan. He frowned, confused. Richard snapped, "What's that?" "The deed to our house," I said, my voice steady as steel. "Paid off, my name only." I paused, watching their faces shift, smugness to shock, guilt to panic. "And this," I drew out another document, "is a prenup amendment I had notarized 3 months ago. My assets are untouchable. Nathan, I left a copy in your sock drawer. Guess you missed it." Silence swallowed the room. Diane's mouth puckered like she'd sucked a lemon. Rachel's eyes widened. Richard's face turned a furious shade of crimson. I locked eyes with Nathan. "So, want to vote on our marriage now?" He didn't speak. The door banged open, and Lucas swaggered in, oblivious as ever. "Sorry, traffic," he said, dropping into a chair with a grin. "What's up?" No one answered. His smile faded as he clocked the papers, the tension, my glare. "I said no," I told him. He smirked, leaning back. "Yeah, and we voted." "Right," I said, my voice slicing through the air like a scalpel. "And I voted too, with these." His confidence cracked, a flicker of panic in his eyes. He looked to Nathan. "Bro, what's this?" Nathan stayed mute. Lucas leapt up, furious, his chair scraping the floor. "You're letting her humiliate us like this?" United States. That word ignited something feral in me. I wasn't family, I was prey. Richard pounded the table, his voice booming. "This isn't family, Emily. You don't drag lawyers into our business." "You made it business when you turned me into a bank," I shot back, leaning forward. "I played your game." Rachel's voice cut through, soft but firm. "I'm done lying. All eyes turned to her. I gave Lucas $15,000 last year. He said it was for a drone business. I got nothing back. I stayed quiet to keep the peace, but this, I'm out. Lucas blinked, his bravado faltering. That's bullshit. She laughed, sharp and bitter. You stopped texting me after the transfer. Matt spoke next, his voice small. I gave him $8,000 3 years ago for a coding boot camp. I thought I was alone. The floodgates opened. A cousin confessed to $4,000 lost on a sure thing. An aunt muttered about a loan from 2018 she'd never seen again. Diane's hands shook, tears welling in her eyes. Lucas yelled over them, "You're all ganging up on me." I crossed my arms, calm amidst the storm. You did this to yourself. He spun on Nathan, desperate. Say something, man. Nathan finally met my gaze, his voice barely a whisper. When did you change the prenup? That was it. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I love you. Just a question about logistics. 3 months ago, I said, my throat tight with exhaustion, not sadness. After Lucas's last big idea, Diane sobbed, her hands covering her face. Richard sank into his chair, deflated. Lucas stormed out, the door slamming like a gunshot. I grabbed my bag. Nathan half rose, his hand reaching. Don't, I said, and walked away. I remember our 3rd anniversary, a memory that stings now like salt in a wound. Nathan surprised me with a picnic by Lake Champlain. Blankets, wine, a basket of sandwiches he'd made himself. The sun was setting, painting the water gold, and he pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. You're my rock, Em, he'd said, his voice soft with a sincerity I'd clung to. I'd be lost without you. I believed him. That night, we danced under the stars, barefoot and laughing, the world shrinking to just us. How did that man become the one who'd sit silent while his family bled me dry? That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in our bed, my bed now, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every lie. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Rachel, can we meet? I've got more. You need to hear it. My pulse raced, a mix of dread and anticipation. We met at a diner at noon, the air thick with grease and regret. She slid into the booth, her eyes shadowed but resolute. I've waited for someone to call Lucas out, she said, her voice low. And Nathan. My stomach dropped. Nathan? She nodded, sliding her phone across the table. That crypto scam last year, the one that sank Lucas? Nathan was his partner. They cooked it up together. Half of Lucas's debt is Nathan's too, and yours. The room spun. She showed me proof. Texts, PayPal receipts, a $20,000 transfer from our joint account labeled investment. I remembered that withdrawal 6 months back. Nathan had said it was for medical bills from a fender bender, even showed me a fake hospital letter. I trusted him, too tired from a double shift to dig deeper. He begged me to stay quiet, Rachel said, her voice trembling. Said he'd fix it before you found out. I bought it. He wasn't fixing anything. He was hiding. He used our savings, I whispered, bile rising in my throat. She didn't reply, just watched me with a pity I hated. Then she dropped another bomb. 2 months ago, he and Lucas went to your parents, pitched a green energy startup, said you were on board. Your dad almost wrote a $40,000 check. I couldn't breathe. My parents, retired teachers living off a modest pension, targeted with my name as the lure. Mom called me last night, Rachel said. She's scared. That's when I knew they'd never stop. Rage clawed at me, but something else too, clarity. I wasn't just a victim, I was a threat. Should I confront him now, give him a chance to explain? Or is this the line I can't uncross? Send me everything, I said, my voice hard. She did. Over the next week, I built a fortress of evidence. Bank statements showed the $20,000 drain. Forged invoices, plumbing, car repairs, a roof that never leaked, piled up. Emails to my parents, signed with my name in Nathan's clumsy imitation, burned in my hands. I found more. 3 credit cards opened in my name, untouched but active, waiting for their next scheme. I hired a PI, a grizzled ex-cop named Hank, to dig deeper. We met in his cluttered office, the walls yellowed from years of cigarette smoke. Got something, Hank said 2 days later, sliding a USB across his desk. A recording. Your husband and Lucas, planning to flip your parents' money into some fake solar deal. Want it? My hands shook as I took it. How'd you get this? Lucas ain't as smart as he thinks, Hank grunted, left his burner phone in a bar. Bartender's a pal. I listened that night, alone in my kitchen, the voices crackling through my laptop. Nathan, she won't notice if we move fast. Lucas, her folks are suckers. Say it's her idea, they'll bite. My blood ran cold. This could bury them, or me, if I played it wrong. I froze the cards, secured my accounts, and met Hank daily, cross-referencing every document. He uncovered a $10,000 loan Nathan had taken under my identity, repaid just enough to dodge my credit alerts. The betrayal was a labyrinth, and I was mapping every turn. I sat in my car outside Hank's office, the folder of evidence burning a hole in the passenger seat. My mind churned, a storm of choices I couldn't quiet. Should I forgive him? I saw Nathan's grin that first night in Portland, the way he'd held me after a brutal shift, whispering I was enough. Could that man still be in there, buried under guilt and bad decisions? Maybe he deserved a chance to come clean, to rebuild what we'd lost. But then I saw his face at that table, the way he'd let them vote me into ruin without a word. Forgiveness felt like handing him a free pass to hurt me again. Should I expose him? I could take this to the police, the family, the world. Ruin him and Lucas. Let the Morgans drown in their own mess. The recording, the emails, the loan. It'd be justice, cold and clean, a guillotine drop. But what about the fallout? Diane's tears, Richard's shame, my parents' confusion as their trust in me shattered. Could I live with that weight? Justice might taste sweet, but it'd leave ash in my mouth. Or should I just walk away? Disappear with my money, my dignity, my life. Leave Nathan to rot in his lies, a ghost I'd never have to face. It was tempting, the cleanest cut. Pack a bag, sell the house, start over. But it felt incomplete, like letting him off too easy, letting the Morgans pretend it never happened. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. He used me. He used my parents. He'd do it again. Exposure won, but not out of spite, out of survival. I'd do it my way. I spent 2 weeks planning, every move deliberate. I met Hank in his office, poring over bank records, tracing every cent Nathan and Lucas had siphoned. I had a lawyer draft divorce papers with an ironclad claim to my assets, the prenup amendment, my shield. I tracked Lucas's latest scam, a fake vintage watch dealership he was running online. Hank got me screenshots of his ads, his burner phone number, a P.O. box in New Hampshire where he stashed the cash. I wasn't just leaving, I was dismantling their world, brick by brick. One night, Nathan cornered me in the kitchen, his eyes wild. Em, we need to talk. I know you're mad, but I can explain. Explain what? I cut in, my voice ice. The money you stole? The lies to my parents? He flinched. I was protecting Lucas. He's family. I didn't mean... You didn't mean to use me? I stepped closer, my anger a living thing. Give me one reason I shouldn't walk out right now. He stammered. I love you. It sounded hollow, a plea from a man who'd forgotten what the word meant. Should I believe him? Give him that chance? Or end it here? I turned away. Too late, Diane called the next day, her voice shaky. Dinner Sunday. We need to heal. I said yes, not for peace, but for the stage. I wanted them all in one room. That night, I walked into the Morgan house with my folder, my heart a drumbeat of resolve. The table was set, the smiles brittle, the air thick with denial. Nathan sat beside me, nervous, sipping wine too fast. Lucas was held up, perfect. I waited until coffee was poured, the clink of cups a countdown. Then I stood. One last vote, I said, my voice ablade. They froze. I laid out the evidence, piece by piece. This is Nathan and Lucas's joint account. 70 grand, most of it mine, some stolen. I tapped a page. This is a forged bill Nathan gave me. Plummin. A lie. I held up the last sheet. And this is an email to my parents, using my name to scam them. Nathan paled, wine sloshing in his glass. Diane whispered, No. Rachel backed me up, her voice steady. It's true. Nathan made me lie for him. He surged to his feet, desperate. Emily, I was fixing it. Lucas was in over his head. I didn't think. You didn't think, I snapped. You schemed. You hid. You protected him because he owns you, doesn't he? He flinched, guilt naked on his face. What does he have, Nathan? He broke, voice cracking. He took the fall for me. 5 years ago, I cooked the books at my old firm. Felony stuff. He claimed it, got probation. I owed him. Richard's voice was ice, cutting through the haze. You sold your wife to pay your debt? Nathan sank down, defeated. She had the money. I just needed time. Had. Like I was a vault, not a person. I pulled out the divorce papers and set them before him. I vote to end this. I turned to leave. Diane grabbed my arm, her eyes wet. Emily, please, think of the family. I did, I said, pulling free. You didn't. I walked out, the silence behind me deafening. I drove away that night, the divorce papers, a quiet passenger beside me, and found a motel where the hum of the heater drowned out my thoughts. Nathan's voicemails piled up, tears, pleas, promises I'd heard before, but I didn't listen. The truth had carved a hollow space in me, one I'd filled with evidence, not forgiveness. Looking back, I see it now. Love isn't a shield. It's a mirror, reflecting who people really are when the masks slip. And trust? It's a currency too precious to squander on liars. There's a moral here, sharp as a scalpel. You can't build a life on someone else's debt, financial or emotional. I paid mine off by walking away. Now I sleep, not perfectly, but peacefully, knowing I chose myself. What about you? Have you ever faced a betrayal that forced you to pick between salvaging the wreckage or burning it down? Drop your story in the comments. I'm reading every one, and I'd love to know what you'd have done in my shoes. If this hit home, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the Graceful Revenge.